Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Tim and Tim Show. Tim Vest is not with me today, but the show must go on. This is one of my favorite things to do, and I love doing these live shows and these, sometimes people call them podcasts, some people call them live shows. Either way, I like to get up here and talk because it allows other people on the other side of the screen to get a glimpse onto the other side of the table of what my life looks like, what Tim and Tim's mindset looks like, what challenges we're struggling with, what obstacles we're overcoming, all the lessons learned that go along in this journey. So today's a monumentous day, and I wanted to talk about limiting beliefs. I know that limiting beliefs can be something that prohibit a lot of people from making progress in whatever you're trying to achieve. I know that limiting beliefs are a lot of the reason why people say that they can't do something. And one of the limiting beliefs that I had when I got into this industry was that I didn't know anybody with money. How was I, this small town kid from the greater Bridgeport, Fairfield, New Haven area of Connecticut, that my mom was a hairdresser growing up. She's a nurse now, and my dad was a UPS driver, and he packed the trucks in the morning. I didn't know anybody with money. At least that's what I thought. And one of the limiting beliefs that I had was that I couldn't raise money. That's just simply not true. I logged into our portal um, as we're working on some always full of vital. Nice. That's good, Dennis. I like that. Um, I logged into our portal and we hit a milestone, and I want to tell everybody about it. Tim and I have always said that we're not capital raisers. We are back end operators. We find deals, we operate the deals, we do the construction, we do the finance, we do the reporting, and we let other people raise the money for us. That's not true anymore. We have officially passed $50 million in private funds that have been raised from a combination of family office, private equity, private investors, money of our own, seller financing. If we included seller financing, we'd be closer to 65 million, but I don't consider that as raised money because it's debt really instead of equity. But $50 million is no small chunk of change. It kind of shocked me, to be honest with you. It's amazing how when you set your mind to something and you really set goals to achieve them, you will achieve the goals. It's when you have those limiting beliefs of coming up with reasons of why you can't do something or why somebody else has to do it for you. Like those things will come true. If you tell somebody that you're not whatever insert is, I mean, I don't know what you're personally going through, but if you tell people I'm not good at finding deals or I'm not this, or I'm not that, that's going to be true. You're speaking it into existence. And limiting beliefs are what you enable yourself to speak into existence to give yourself a comfort zone or bubble of where you can and can't operate, whether that's true or not, right? Nine times out of 10, your limiting beliefs are not true. And limiting beliefs are something that happen up here that keep you from achieving your goals. And I love crushing limiting beliefs. I was on a phone call yesterday with somebody that was interested in joining our coaching group, and I absolutely destroyed his limiting beliefs. And this was like the introductory call of like seeing if he was going to be a good fit for our group or not. And we talked for about 45 minutes to an hour and just kind of crushed his limiting beliefs. The guy was heavy into self storage, had done self storage development. He had bought self storage. He owned about $4 million worth of self storage facilities. And he's like, self storage is saturated. Everybody want to make money in multifamily, so I'm going to start making money in multifamily. And I was like, dude, like you need to stop those limiting beliefs that there's no more deals in self storage and that that the market is saturated, then you're not going to be able to make money in self storage. And I was like, you have something that is more valuable than anybody else, or not anybody else, but a lot of other people. Is you have experience. You have experience with development. You own property yourself. Your biggest constraint of being able to grow your business is raising money at this point. But you have everything, all the tools, and you have all the tools and the skill sets required to be successful. So do yourself a favor, don't start over because you think the grass is greener on the other side. stay focused and change your limiting beliefs about why you can't find something right now. It's probably because you haven't focused on it. So the limiting belief that we had of not being able to raise money, I mean, that really kind of changed me. I'm not going to lie. I mean, this is kind of an epiphany moment right now for me, is that we are capital raisers. One of my good buddies, if he's watching this, shout out to Sam Silverman. I've learned a lot from him. I mean, we talk a lot about your avatar of money for your targeted audience, your pitch, your listening abilities, your problem solving skills. All of those things come into effect when you're raising capital from investors, and it's become so second nature for me that I didn't really think much of it anymore. But I need to stop labeling ourselves, me and Tim Vest included. We need to stop labeling ourselves as we are the owner operators, but not the capital raisers. And we offer a coaching group, and we commonly tell people, hey, if you're looking to learn how to raise money, we're not your guys. And that's not true. It's my own limiting belief. Everyone deals with limiting beliefs. Oh, thanks, Ace. Appreciate it. I've been watching you guys for a while now too. um, Everyone has their own limiting beliefs, and this is one of ours, or one of mine at least. Tim Vest is not here right now to kind of comment on it, but I believe that we are capital raisers. When I was talking with this individual earlier this week, and we started talking about how the problem solving abilities make it so that you can raise money from other people, it was like a load was lifted off of his shoulders, because he's like, I never thought about it that way. And that conversation ultimately got me thinking about what I say about myself differently. So limiting beliefs can really hinder your ability to grow. Um, and I think that sometimes it's good to do a self audit of, why am I saying these things about myself? Are they even true? Can I change some of these things? Is it something that I just don't want to do, and I'm telling myself that I can't do it because I don't want to do it? There's a lot of soul searching that has to happen when you're trying to look at yourself. It can be easier to address other people's problems by listening to their story and telling them what to do. That it's a common, that's a really good example of do as I say, not as I do, which not a great parenting style for those that don't know. But lead by example. And this is me leading by example for our coaching group, for our investors, for anybody that has invested in us, whether it's personally or professionally. Commonly also doing thought audits and trying to understand, what are my limiting beliefs, why am I telling myself these things, and is this something that I can change, and if I can, what do I need to do that? So I just, man, I really wanted to get on here and just kind of talk about how it doesn't matter what stage of life you're in, it doesn't matter what stage of business you're in, there are always going to be limiting beliefs that you need to address. You need to address them yourself so that you can come up with a plan. Because most often what I find is when people have these limiting beliefs of that what they can and can't do, it's because they have not sat down and made like a list, right? Like pros and cons list, or a problems and solutions list, right? It's like, I don't know anybody with money, therefore I'm not a capital raiser. Okay, well, how do you fix that? Well, I need to associate myself with people that have money. Okay, where do those types of people hang out? Okay. So how do you start to learn how to provide value to those types of people so that they would want to invest with you? I don't have all the answers for you, because every situation, every individual is going to be different. My situation is going to be different from your situation. Your message is going to be different than my message of why I think you should invest into a deal or not. I mean, I think I've told more people that they should not invest into a deal rather than they should, and we've raised about $50 million. I mean, that's collectively between Tim Vest and myself. And again, reminder, that's our private equity fund, which in essence is us raising money from the fund. I mean, we still had to pitch the deal, we had to build a relationship, we had to solve their problem of what they were trying to do. Everything that applies on raising money from a $25,000 investor is the same thing as raising money from a $10 million investor. Okay. Um, We've grown substantially over this year, and a lot of that is attributed to our capital raising abilities. And I'm going to pat myself on the back here because this is a downed market. I mean, the last 18 months have been some of the most difficult times to go out and buy real estate. And a lot of people say that they can't buy real estate because they can't find investors. Well, why can't you find investors? It's probably because you haven't done enough thought auditing on what does an investor actually need and what can you provide to them in order to provide value. Um, Oh, thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate it. Love how transparent you are. Shows true character. Honored to know you. I appreciate that. Look, man, I'm not perfect. I'm learning every day. I mean, I pay for coaches. I mean, I paid one of my mentors. I paid $18,000 for a one-on-one day of coaching, and those things changed the trajectory of our business, and that's important because if your coach isn't looking for coaches and doesn't have mentorship, there's different levels to this, then you're not in the right room. You are essentially learning from a big fish who's the biggest fish in the pond, but you're sure you could get to the point where they're at, but there has to be even more forward thinking than that. And do you really want to associate yourself with somebody that is not continually trying to learn and grow themselves, that they're happy with where they're at, they're not really making changes, and sure, there's something to be said about when you reach that point in your life and your career, but also you need to do a thought audit and take a look at yourself and what are you trying to achieve, and does that really align with your goals? I don't know. Um, just kind of a little tangent of thought, that kind of brought me down. Anyways, so the limiting beliefs around raising money, that's something that I think Tim and I are going to have to change in our coaching program because we do know how to raise money, a lot of it. The growth of our business over the last 18 months has been because of the ability to raise money and the trust that we've built with the investors, our investors. I mean, I know every single one of my investors have my cell phone number, right here. And they can call me, they can text me, they ask me for advice, they ask me what I have in the pipeline, they ask me how previous deals are doing, they ask me about deals that we've recently sold that they were not a part of. They ask me about lessons learned, and all of those conversations ultimately build another layer of trust with the investors because the transparency. And like Jimmy Thorpe said, it's the transparency. It's the vulnerability to admit when you're wrong and the transparency to say what you learned from the transaction and how you're fixing it. A very good example of a deal, one of the, I wouldn't say the first deals, but one of the first 10 deals that we bought. Um, we worked with an insurance agent, broker, and the square footages on the insurance policy were wrong because he took the square footage of the building from the tax assessor instead of from the Alta survey. And what ended up happening was the square footage of the building was the footprint, not the total square footage of the net rentable square footage, right? So essentially, what we had to do is double it because it's a two-story building. What that did was it doubled my insurance policy. And had we had the correct information when we were buying the property, we probably wouldn't have bought it because the insurance would have crushed the deal. And well, we bought the property and the insurance policy was great. And then 4 months later, they had an insurance inspector come out as they normally do. And they said, wait a second, your square footage on this policy is wrong. You're only insuring one floor, not two floors. So policy doubled. And then we're kind of in a bad situation from that point forward, which is very unfortunate. But what I learned from that is a conversation I have with every single insurance policy with my insurance broker now is what is the total square footage of the policy and what is the price per square foot on the replacement cost, because I have seen insurance brokers do price per square foot too low. I have seen insurance brokers do price per square foot too high. And also, I always check now to make sure that the net rentable square footage is roughly the same as what my total like units are. Like if you have 100 units at 1,000 square feet, does my policy is it 100,000 square feet or is it 50,000 square feet, right? So like that's how you can kind of test to see if things are wrong. But that's a vulnerable and transparent story of something that we screwed up. Not a fault of my own. Well, I guess it is a fault of my own because I believe in extreme ownership and transparency, right? So it was a fault of my own. I didn't know better to ask that question. Now I do know better, and that I guarantee you that problem has never happened again, and it won't ever happen again because it's part of my checklist of things that I go through. Part of it's experience, part of it's learning and trusting your gut and all this other kind of stuff. But Anyways, sorry, going down a tangent again. I can commonly do that, but let me get back to where we were talking about was crushing capital raising limiting beliefs. And so yeah, so I come from small town. I didn't really know anybody, but what I did in order to start raising a lot of money from individuals was I provided a lot of value through this outlet, right? This podcast, this live stream that we're doing right now. This is a way that I provide value to anybody that's willing to listen, whether you're an investor yourself, whether you're an equity investor, whether you're a debt investor, whether you're a family office or private equity fund, or you're one of our coaching students, or just somebody that I know in the real estate world. Things that I talk about are real problems, day-to-day problems that anybody in this business would have, and they're valuable because hopefully what you will learn is to learn from my mistakes and not make the same mistakes yourself. And in time, the more you network, the more you associate yourself, the more you're transparent, the more you do things like this that provide value to other people, that makes this feeling of I want to I feel like I know you, right? So like this conversation, I'll go back to the conversation I was having was with somebody that was interviewing for a coaching group. He's like, I feel like I know you already, Tim. And I was like, well, how do you feel like you know me? And he goes, well, because I've watched all of your live shows. And I was like, that's exactly the way that I build relationships with people that want to invest money in our deals, because the more they see your face, the more hear you talk, the more you explain your thought process and your mistakes and your vulnerabilities and your transparency, the more you do those things, it builds relationships with people that you don't even know, right? You have to create some kind of platform where you can provide value to other people, and that is going to that's going to attract people to you. If you don't attract people to you, you're always going hunting, right? And I don't want to go hunting. I want to do catching. Like it's like I want people to be attracted to me and build a funnel of people so that when they actually get to the bottom of the funnel, which is a phone call with me, my close rate is so much higher because it's already been filtered down naturally, organically. There's no fakeness in the conversation. There's no pitching, there's no sales. It's building a relationship with the other person on the line, and it doesn't matter who it is. Could be, again, I'll repeat, it could be an investor, it could be an insurance broker, it could be a broker that wants to sell you a deal, it could be somebody that wants to join your coaching program, it could be somebody that just wants to say hello and buy you coffee because they live down the street. Who knows who is on the other side of that line? But the more you're able to build relationships with people, meaningful relationships, not just hey, how you doing? We're associates level of a relationship. You're going to be able to capitalize is a bad word because it seems like it's a business transaction, but I mean, in essence, I mean, it is a business transaction in one sense, but all of those business transactions turn into real genuine friendships. I mean, I have some investors now that they anything that I have, they just say, "Yeah, but sign me up for 100 grand," right? Because they know that I'm willing and able and I work hard, and not every deal goes right. Not every deal goes right. And if you say that you have every single deal that went perfect and it followed your underwriting to a T, you're a liar. Not every deal goes right. And you have to be willing to talk to people about that because investing has inherent risk. And the more questions you ask to your investors and build their buy box, you're going to be able to provide a solution to them, which is providing value, right? That's to bring that whole thing full circle of like why providing, like creating your platform and providing value to people is because you need to learn to solve their problems. Most people that I deal with, at least when they first start investing with me, they don't even know what they want or what they don't want. They say that at least, but the more you learn to ask and pry questions and kind of you learn the skill set of being able to build a buy box for them by their responses. So if you learn to ask specific questions and listen to what they say at the end of all of their statements, or at the end of your conversation, summarize the whole thing, right? So this is what we said, X, Y, and Z, and these are the things that we like, these are the things that we don't like. And then you, as the person that is raising money and doing these deals, Hopefully, you're the one that's operating the deal as well. You can summarize all those things and tell them, well, this is a good fit because of it meets XYZ box. It does not meet XYZ box, or one, two, three, or whatever you want to label them. It doesn't meet these boxes. But here, let me show you something that I think you would be more interested in, because more often than not, the conversations that we have with people end up turning into like I end up turning into like kind of a financial advisor of sorts, because I have a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different offerings that people can invest into. So me listening to what my investor has to say helps me build a buy box for them so I can present a deal that they're more than likely to say yes to. Because if you have that level of connection and relationship with somebody and you know what they're looking for, more importantly, you know what they're not looking for, you can reach out to them and say, hey, you said this is something that you liked. This is something that you wanted to avoid. You were trying to solve this problem over here. Here's an opportunity that meets all of those check boxes that we talked about. If you're interested in doing this opportunity, let me know. If not, no pressure, no problem. I just wanted you to know that I listened to what you had to say and I found you a solution to your problems. If you don't want to invest into the deal, that's your own prerogative, but this is what you're looking for, and I would recommend that you put some money into this deal because it's going to solve your problems. And it's a much more genuine approach to raising capital. And it's not just here, this is a great deal. Invest your money into this deal because we're going to make money. Like, sure, making money, great. Don't get me wrong. Everybody loves to make money. But the rule number one is don't lose money. So you have to focus on how are people's money protected in this investment, in this opportunity, so that they won't lose money first. That's the most important part. How am I not going to lose your money? Why can you tell me safely that these numbers that you're projecting in your pro forma are accurate? They're not inflated or deflated. That ultimately that they're precise. We want to make sure that we're conservative, but we want to be accurate. And I like being accurate because that gives you a real guiding light of where you need to be in a deal in order to make the returns for your investors. One of the reasons why we like affordable housing it's because there's no speculation in my underwriting in terms of income. The government tells me what I can charge for rent. They're publicly posted numbers online. I can show this piece of paper that says, here's what I can charge for rent. Here's what we're charging today. Here's what the value is today. And here's what the value will be in 2 years. Very easy to conceptually understand that we're going to go from here to here based on these hard facts, hard data. That is something that's dictated. That's not, like market rate where it can soften or whatever. I mean, sure, it could in the future, but generally, I have never seen affordable housing vouchers or LIHTC rent rates go down. I've just seen them either stay flat or go up, right? So that's one way that we provide value to our investors is a level of security, a level of certainty that most other people can't provide. Now, I also make sure I label the vulnerable parts of we can't control taxes, insurance, and debt. But here's what I did in order to combat those three things and how I think it's going to happen. And really, at the end of the day, it's okay, we agree that the rent is here and they could be here because of this data. Great. We also assume that our expenses are going to be here, here, and here based on our experience and other properties that we own. Here's what we don't know, but here's what I'm projecting: taxes, insurance, and debt, right? Those are the projections. And I say to them, if you agree with these assumptions and these projections and this level of risk, then you would like to invest in this deal. If you don't agree with those level of assumptions and risk, then don't invest into this deal. Now, I can't make that decision for you, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, but I'm going to clearly label all of the things that we do know, that we don't know, and the things that are speculation, because it's fact. Anything past 2 years is speculation. Nobody knows what the rents are going to do, or the expenses, or the debt, or insurance, or taxes are going to do more than 24 months away. We can make assumptions of what they will do, and I clearly label those things, and that gets the investor comfortable with the risk. And once you get the investor comfortable with the risk, if you get them comfortable with the upside and you get them really comfortable with the downside and how you're mitigating the risk on the downside, that's that magic moment that people feel comfortable, they feel on board, they feel part of the process of buying a deal where they get to underwrite and analyze the risk, the downside, the upside, and make the decision themselves if they want to do something or not. And you, as the person that's offering the opportunity, the only thing that you could do is present the opportunity, label everything, define everything, call out. So I'll give shout out to my previous boss. Her name was Jen. She would always ask me, what's the follow-up question going to be? And I use that approach in our offerings and my pitches and my underwriting, because I always try to think about, what is the follow-up question going to be? If I say this, what is somebody going to respond with as an additional question? And it behooves you to make sure that you answer those questions before your investor can ask them, because if you can label all of these things and identify the risk, the upside, the downside, the potential gains, the business plan, the models, the everything, you can generally get somebody on board and say, you've already answered all of my questions, and I don't have any other questions because you've thought about it all. And when it comes to underwriting deals and making operating offerings, you have to have that detail, and you have to have that level of understanding of your deal to make sure that you're providing that level of service for your investors. Because don't forget, at the end of the day, you are a service provider. You make money with other people's money, right? You provide them returns on their money. That's your job, right? Don't forget that at the end of the day is you work for your investors to create money for them. Yes, you get paid in return, fees and equity and all this other kind of stuff, but your sole job is to make money for your investors. And eventually, when you don't have to raise money from other people, you can use your own money, but then you are the investor. And all of this experience that you have by doing all these deals in the past will make you a better investor. Every single time you do another deal, you're going to learn something different. You're going to learn something new, and you add that feather to the cap and say, well, I've been through this before, and this is what we did. This is what we learned, and this is how I'm going to prevent it again in the future. I think it's really long-winded, and I apologize. I see a bunch of you are still watching, so I appreciate you kind of following along here. But I really wanted to kind of label out those things about how the conversations go and the mindset needs to be when you're raising money from people, because that's been the key to my success. Is exactly everything I just said. Labeling the ups. I mean, that's why my company name before Vive Equity was Upside Capital. Was, we want to make sure we're investing for the upside, but as long as we're mitigating the downside risk. If you understand those two parts and you can label and identify all of moving pieces in your deal, then you'll be able to provide returns for investors and have a successful business. Because remember, your job and your business creates money for other people. So don't forget about that. You always need to make sure you're putting other people first, you're providing value to your investors, and that's the way to guarantee that you're going to continue to get investors that come back to you and see the value in investing with you rather than somebody else. I can tell one final thought here is one thing I can tell you is that people love to invest with Tim and Tim because we're the owner operators. We sign our own debt, we raise our own money, we put our money into the deal, we put family money into the deal. Hell, after this phone call, I have to call my mom because she's putting money into a deal that we're doing, right? That's the level of involvement that you get by investing with Tim and Tim. And that brings another level of comfort with your investors, that knowing you have not just somebody's money in the deal, you have people that matter to you money in the deal. Um, Being able to invest with people that are close to the asset, they're vertically integrated, they have their own management company, we have our own LIHTC compliance, we raise our own money, we sign our everything, right? Our level of involvement, we have a lot more to lose by doing a bad deal and giving back the keys, as you've heard a lot of people might be doing with where the debt is and rates and all that kind of things are happening right now. We don't do that. We don't quit. We don't give up. We have to make sure that these deals are successful because we have all of these things that are dependent on us being successful. And of course, you never want to let your family down. So, all right. I appreciate everybody joining today. I really wanted to kind of get on here and talk about these things that are bouncing around in my head right now. This is something that I've learned recently, and I want to provide value and show you what it looks like from my point of view. things that we're learning, how we're growing, we're being transparent, we're being vulnerable, things we're doing well, things we're not doing well. And that's just the way that you build solid relationships with people and continue to grow your business. So if you haven't started doing those things, think about how you could start providing value to others today, because that in the long run is going to be what makes you more successful than anybody else. So appreciate you joining today, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Peace.